All right, I think we're live. We are live. Welcome to the Saratoga podcast. Hey,
Election
Adam, how are
edition.
you? I miss what you just said. What'd you
I
say?
said the Saratoga podcast post-election edition.
Post-election edition without our buddy Dan DeFederici, who is in Disney World. Who takes a freaking trip to Disney on election week? That is
Come
my
on,
question for you.
come on, Dan.
I mean, come on is right.
Yeah.
Get with it, buddy. Anyway, we have lots to talk about, and I know we're at kind of a funky time right now. But with kids and the election madness, this is when we could get on and go through some of these results. So here we are. So do you want to start local, Adam? And let's start with the city race that was a special election was between Anthony Sirocco Jr. and Jason Golub for the Department of go ahead, for the Commissioner of Public Works.
Public Works. And I was going to say, just to give people, most people watching the podcast probably know this, but Skip Sirocco, who in 2021 was voted into that position, unfortunately passed away. And so Jason Golub was appointed by the Democrats to fill his position as per the charter.
Well, just to be clear, he wasn't appointed by the Democrats. The Democratic City Council put together a committee of people who were not all Democrats to appoint him.
Thank you. That's just a good clarification.
Thank you.
But they appointed Jason Golub, who ran this race as a Democrat, to that position. So he was technically the incumbent, and he did pretty well.
Yeah, he did. By the way, excuse the enormous Diet Coke. It's one of those days, Adam.
Yes. So
So first, we should probably start off by saying, in midterm or presidential election years, we have significantly higher voter turnout than we do on local election years. So, for example, last year, the only elections that were happening were local city elections. We had about 8,800 people turn out. For this midterm elections that we just had on Tuesday, 12,377 people turned out. So a significantly bigger number. I think that Jason having the Democratic line is obviously a tremendous help. I know as early voting was wrapping up, about 1,000 more Democrats had voted in early voting. In the city of Saratoga, the Democrats still have a significant enrollment advantage. And so I think that certainly played to Jason's favor. I, full disclosure, worked on his campaign, helped on his campaign. I also think he's a real moderate Democrat. He's someone I actually don't ever think of as partisan in any way, shape, or form. And I think that kind of his moderate position and what he's been able to get done in public works already helped him as well. But I will say it's hard for me to take any joy out of this victory as much as I'm thrilled for Jason, because, you know, my heart just still hurts for Skip, and it hurts for his family so much. And there was a Sirocco on the city council for a really long time. And I know that I think about that all the time and really miss Skip, and I'm constantly thinking of their family. So it's a bittersweet moment for me, at least personally.
Yeah. You know, one thing when you talked about this, Robin, with the turnout, and I actually, you know, mentioned this to Anthony, but he actually got more votes than his father did. So
wow.
Yeah. Yep. So, you know, it's a little consolation in the fact that even though he didn't win, you know, the turnout was so large, but he got more votes than his father did because of the turnout. So I agree with you. You know, his dad was one of the good guys. I got to know Anthony a little bit during the campaign. I liked him a lot. But I like Jason a lot too. And actually, I have to clarify something that in our last podcast, Robin, that you missed. If you've been watching city councils, you know there's been a vocal group from Grand Ave who's been asking for sidewalks, and you know Jason was able to find nearly $1 million to build sidewalks, and I thought that was coming out of the 2023 budget, which I questioned. Jason corrected me. That's actually it's still a little hazy, but it's actually money that is going to be reimbursed by the state and government. So it's not money that's going to be coming out of Saratoga's budget. So that's what's that?
Adam, I'm laughing because so last week I was planning on being on the podcast, but about 10 minutes before we were about to live stream, I got a call that I had to pick up a sick kid from school, which is why I wasn't on the podcast. Next thing I know, I'm getting text messages that YouTube jabones are like, there's misinformation. You've gotten things wrong. People are upset. I'm like, you know, I walk away for 1 minute, Adam.
One podcast, right. And we're misquoting him. But regardless, he's really kicked off that sci-fi program, getting that not kicked off, but put the whip to the horse there that Michelle Madigan started to get the fiber in the roads. He's getting that pocket park done. He's done a lot for the city, and he's been very progressive, not in his politics, but progressive in the way that he's thinking outside the box a little bit and getting things done. And I think he'd be a good addition for the city.
My hope is that Anthony Sirocco or someone from the Sirocco family can still be involved in city politics. I mean, I know that's kind of, maybe they don't want to be, but I think about the infrastructure committee that is functioning now, and how how incredibly valuable somebody like Anthony Sirocco Jr. would be on an infrastructure committee. I mean, he knows more about that than probably the entire committee put together. So I would love to see a way for him to continue to be involved in shaping the future of the city through City Hall. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that would be a really nice thing. Yeah. So the final results there were Jason Golub had 56% of the vote to Anthony Sirocco Jr.'s 44% of the vote. Some of the other
hold on, I want to talk about this a little bit longer. Two things. One, there were 6 write-in votes. Do we ever get to know who's on the right, who the names on the write-in votes?
I mean, obviously, Adam, that's you, your wife, your kids, everybody just writing in Adam Israel, I assume.
Exactly. And then the second thing is the previous.
By the way, I think you do. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think you do get to see who the write-in people were once they have the final ballot, once they have the final results certified by the county. I think you do get to see that.
That'd be interesting to see that. But that brings up a bigger question. And to give a little background to the politics in the city, Robin, you were elected into office as a Republican. The only Republican after you with Skip Sirocco, who was a long-term incumbent. And we're seeing this shift. Do you think that a Republican can get voted in Saratoga in the future, or do you think our commissioner elections are going to come down to the Democratic primaries? Do you see a path forward?
That's a really good question. So I was the only Republican elected to the city council outside of Skip Sirocco for the last, 10 or 12 years, maybe, since at least since Joanne Yupson was the mayor. And the only way I was successful in that election in 2019 was through building a bipartisan coalition of support with 2 Democrats who are running for office. I campaigned with Meg Kelly, who is a Democrat, and I campaigned with Michelle Madigan, who is a Democrat. And so we really embodied that city above party mentality. And that's really the only reason I won. And so I also put a lot of parameters in place in terms of the people managing my campaign, and the county Republican chair and the county Republicans in general and the city Republicans. And I said to them, there will be no mention of Trump in this campaign. There'll be no mention of national Republican issues. I told them, I was pro-choice, I was pro-immigrant, I was, basically all the things that I knew were counter to the traditional Republican ideologies of the time in 2019.
Well, I'll say we can get into this later, but I don't know that Republicans are necessarily anti-immigrant. I think they're more pro-control.
Not anti-immigrant, meaning I'm for open borders, I guess.
The DREAM Act, things like
yes.
An easier path for immigrants to become part of our country. But anyway, sorry, I just had to throw.
No, that's okay.
You had your Democratic little correction for me. There's my Republican correction.
Totally. No, and that was a good one because
anyway.
I wouldn't fly a group of immigrants from Florida to Texas to Martha's Vineyard, as an example. But they were really clear on all those things, and they really allowed me to message my campaign all about the city and city over party, and not make it a Republican versus Democrat. But I also was able to put together this big coalition of bipartisan support. And that was really the only reason I won. And if the Republicans moving forward are unwilling to do that, strictly from a numbers perspective, they will continue to lose because the numbers are not there. The enrollment advantage in the city of Saratoga Springs is at least, I should get this number exactly, but it's significantly higher than the number of enrolled Republicans. Although the biggest group of all are people who are NOP, which is no official party. Either they think they're independent and maybe a part of the Independence Party, which no longer has a ballot line, or they just have no affiliation with a political party. So I don't see how, especially with Heidi West running last year, to me, that was kind of really indicative of the best campaign you could possibly run for a Republican here. She had all the endorsements. She raised well over $100,000. She had the support of, people in Saratoga who the establishment in Saratoga, she had support from younger Saratoga. She, again, had as much support as I think a Republican could possibly have in an election that I've seen, and she lost. And so I really don't know how moving forward they're going to be able to pull off any victories unless they truly work with the Democrats and work on putting bipartisan candidates up for election.
Yeah, I agree with it. It pains me to say that because, again, being around, I'd like to see the party move past the Trump and kind of establish itself in Saratoga. But with the changing demographics, and if you look at what happened with Anthony Scirocco running, it was he was kind of that last Scirocco name. His signs were like his father's. He got beat pretty bad, and I thought he ran a great campaign. So, or at least competitive campaign.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Scirocco really wasn't a traditional Republican in the traditional Republican sense and how he voted on the city council. He, for example, was vehement about protecting the Greenbelt against development, which wouldn't have been a traditionally Republican slant here in Saratoga Springs. He was anti the casino expansion a number of years ago when Cuomo handed out the gaming license and the Racino wanted a gaming license so they could expand into table gaming. He was against that. And so there have been some really pivotal moments in Commissioner Scirocco's career where he didn't go with the Republican establishment, and Democrats, especially moderate Democrats, paid attention and voted with him and loyally voted with him because of those reasons. But to me, the thing that is really tragic is that this city council doesn't vote by party. Like, the issues that come before the city council aren't traditionally partisan issues. And I have not experienced ever really people saying like, we're Dems, we should stick together and vote this way. We're Republicans, we should stick together and vote this way. Since I've been in Saratoga, I know it used to be like that probably, but it hasn't been anymore. And it shouldn't be, because the issues are not traditionally Republican or traditionally Democratic issues. So I think it would be great if there was more collaboration between the Republican and Democratic committee on who they're running for office. And it's more about who's best qualified to serve the city and less about just winning to have a win.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I don't know that we'll ever see collaborations between the R's and the D's, but
we did. 2019, we did. We stood on the stage with like the Democratic chair, the Republican chair. We had this like incredible win. That wasn't so far ago. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, there were some other races, Robin. We want to.
Okay, some of the other races. So we had, for example, Carrie Warner and Dave Catalfamo on our show, who are running for the 113th Assembly District. So this is Carrie Warner was the incumbent. She's been our Assemblywoman for quite some time here in Saratoga. Dave Catalfamo, this is his second time challenging her. And it was somewhat close, but Carrie took 51.22% of the vote. To Catalfamo's 46.89% of the vote. So Carrie Warner will remain our Assemblywoman, and Catalfamo did lose. I'm curious to see, Dave Catalfamo's family is very involved in the Republican establishment in New York state politics, and I'm curious to see if he'll run for another office. But personally, I think I like Dave a lot, just personally, but I think that Carrie Warner works her butt off, and she is 7 days a week, 24/7 working for the people she represents. And I've always had a really positive experience when I was in city council and needed something, or when I was just a resident who needed something. She's always been responsive and terrific. She helped us secure money for the police department in 2021 when we needed it. She's been great. So I'm pleased with the outcome of that election. But I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, so she actually is the one who Commissioner Golub, I'm pretty sure I could say this. He credited her for helping secure that money to get these sidewalks. Yes. And I agree with you. I thought Dave was very well spoken. I like what he had to say when he was on our show. But Carrie she's an incumbent, and a strong incumbent, a well-liked incumbent. An incumbent who's got a lot of presence. I saw her ads everywhere. I saw her on my street. It was whoever ran her campaign They did a great job either fundraising or using those funds for to get the most exposure, because I'd be on my phone, and Kerry Warner would be coming across, Kerry Warner would be coming across my phone while a commercial's playing on the TV for Kerry Warner. And I loved her one ad where, and because you always think of how do you combat. I remember when I was running, how do you, if there's ever, and there never were, but if there were ever negative ads, how do you combat the negative ad? And I love this ad she did where it was like 3 seconds of a negative ad about inflation or gas prices, something, associated with the Democrats. And she immediately, and then she comes on the TV and says, I can't stop what they say about me, but this is what I can tell you. And I thought that was a great way to kind of counter these negative ads of saying, listen, people, they're going to say all these crazy things. They're going to run, they're going to slant, and everybody does this in pop. Not everybody, but both sides do it. They slant facts to fit their narrative and to fit the image they want to portray of their opponent. And it's not always the most accurate way to do it. And I thought her ads were great. I thought her campaign was great. And I'm sad Dave Loff, happy she won. So
well, and I have to say about the city of Saratoga Springs, generally speaking, the city of Saratoga Springs does not like it when people do attack ads. It's not something that they find palatable. I mean, every year it seems that the Republicans in October go negative. The Democrats have also gone negative at times, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't seem to ever be a successful strategy. It seems like they're trying to lure the other candidate into talking about something that the other candidate doesn't want to talk about,
Yeah.
I'm also looking at one. I keep all the political mailers because I'm such a dork. And I'm looking at one of them right here. That was pretty typical of what Catalfamo's campaign was sending out. And it essentially says, hey, Biden, Hochul, and Kerry Warner, we need answers on how to make ends meet. How am I supposed to pay for my winter heat? Why can't I fill a grocery cart for $200 anymore? And don't even get me going about rising gas prices or my retirement fund. So that was one of their.
Dave, I think we need answers to these.
Well,
I know, but I know. I know what you're saying.
I agree we need answers, but I don't think that
but that mailer's not the answer.
Is going to be able to affect those things. That is at a much higher level. So to me, that's like, okay, Chuck Schumer, what the hell are you doing? Hey, President Biden, what the hell are you doing?
Yes, that's not Dave. That wasn't Dave's solution.
Yeah,
he's not offering his solution. He's just identifying a problem. So.
Exactly. And I will say, if you want to fill your grocery cart for less than $200, Trader Joe's, I'm pretty sure you can still do that over there.
Yeah.
So moving on, one of the other races that got a lot of buzz this year was the district attorney race, because this was the first time, according to the Democrats, there was a real competitor to go up against the Republican district attorney, who's Karen Hagan. So Michael Phillips ran a hard race. He ended up losing 43 to 57. So Karen Hagan got 57% of the vote. Michael Phillips got 43% of the vote. I think, given it was the first time, Democrat running, I think he did a decent job. I personally thought that at the end of his campaign, he got a little gimmicky with some of the stunts he was doing. I don't know, Adam, if you caught this thing he did where apparently someone found on the side of the road confidential files that belonged to the district attorney's office. And so this person who found them then contacted Michael Phillips, and then the person and Michael Phillips walked up to the district attorney's office with all their cameras rolling to knock on the door and return the confidential documents to the district attorney's office, and also point out how disorganized they were and so on and so forth. And I watched it, and it just seemed
didn't hit.
It seemed so contrived, and just
it has like a Hunter Biden laptop feel to it,
exactly.
This is the smoking gun. And I remember what during my campaign, you always wanted that. You always wanted that big gotcha moment. I thought I had mine in a debate, and it turned out I think it hurt me more than it helped me. And I think a lot of times you're so amped up, and you just want that. You want that kill shot. Part of not kill shots might not the right term, but you want that. That hey, this is a gotcha moment. This is going to win the race for me, and it just comes off either cringy or contrived or
Totally. And people probably don't know, who aren't in politics, maybe don't know this term. But to me, though, if you find files in the road that are confidential files that belong to the district attorney's office, you have a surrogate run with that. You don't have the actual candidate running against the DA run with that, because it just isn't going to look like anything other than politics. It's not going to look like a legit problem within the DA's office. So, and he also went with, the Nexium angle. And I didn't think that resonated at the time. And I still don't think that really resonates. So I can't say it was a surprise to see Karen win. I think that it was going to be a really hard road for Michael. I told him as much back in, the spring, but a worthy effort. Any other comments on that, Adam?
Nope.
Okay, well, let's move on to the 44th Senate District, where we had Jim Tedisco, who's been in office for quite some time, running against Michelle Osterlich. And this was an interesting one because they redistricted the 44th Senate District. And so it's Saratoga, it's Schenectady, and some parts in between. And basically, it was redistricted to be a primarily Democratic district. So Jim Tedisco has been in office for years and years and years as a Republican, and he's a pretty conservative Republican. Michelle Osterlich is, I would describe as a somewhat moderate Democrat, although some of the people who led her campaign are not Democrats that I would connect with. But I thought because of the redistricting, maybe she would have a better chance of beating Tedisco, despite his being an incumbent for so long. But she did not. She got kind of a spanking. Tedisco won 56% to her 41.87, which was surprising to me. Were you surprised at all by that one?
I didn't follow that race closely, but Robin, let me put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah.
The 44th district. What do you know offhand what that comprises of? What counties?
Yes. Let me look it up just to be clear, because I know it's Schenectady, us, and hold on, 44th. Here it is, 44th Senate District in Hawaii. It is. Okay, New York State. Just give me the freaking geography. It is geography. It is the 44th, District 44 is located in the Capital District counties of Albany County and Rensselaer County, including Albany and much of Troy. That might be the prior to redistricting. Sorry, ignore that. I'm getting that on Wikipedia, and I feel like it's not updated.
Yeah, but I mean, this district, either way, it sounds like it's a left-leaning district, right?
Oh, it is. It's definitely a Democratic district, 100%.
Yeah. But Jim Tedisco with being the incumbent, again, he's another really visible guy. You see him around, you hear his name a lot. Was able to carry the day. He was able to carry the day, and I have a funny story about him, but I want to get you the God, it never talks about. Well, I'll look it up and put it in the comments at the end. In terms of, yeah, I will say when I was getting ready for today's show, I was going through the county BOE website, and the city website. There are all these municipality websites. They're all a little clunky.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they are all a little clunky. And I don't know if this is updated. So here it says, since 2017, he's been the New York State Senator for the 49th District. I know he switched districts, though, so that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that. My funny story about Jim Tedisco. Back in 2019, I was at the county fair, which is like a whole different world for me to go over to the county fair, out in Boston Spa. And the Republicans and the Democrats both have tables set up separately, and the Republicans have this table, and you go and you kind of sit and man the table, and the candidates go and you bring some of your stuff, some giveaway stuff. And I love merchandising, so I brought water bottles and all this all this shit that I'd merchandise. And people would just walk up to the table and literally open up their bag and just scoop it into their bag, and I'd be
take the swag.
Yeah, they would take all the swag, and they obviously they were clearly not Saratoga Springs voters. And so at one point I was there with Jim Tedisco, and I was like, Jim, what is your secret sauce? What's your magic? Because he hadn't brought anything with him really. So the only thing he would make and give away, and people loved so much, were nail files. Jim Tedisco nail files. And I was like,
nail file.
That is genius. And yeah, I'll take a nail file and throw it in my bag, because I'll probably
a good use of campaign funds. I'll tell you my my county fair story. When I first took my wife.
Wait, look, Dan DeFederici is helping us out.
Oh,
here. Dan says the new district is all of All of Saratoga County plus Schenectady and Niskayuna.
All right. All right.
Thank
So
you, Dave.
Schenectady. So you have the county. The city's very, very blue, but the county's very red. Niskayuna. I don't know how. I guess Niskayuna must skew a little bit Republican.
The county's not. Wait. The county is not very red. The county voted blue in the last presidential election for Biden.
Yeah. Well, we also have Elise Stefanik as.
Well, Elise Stefanik is the North Country, which is a part of Saratoga County, and then you go into like Warren and Washington
County.
Yeah, which are totally different situations.
Yeah. Anyway, my wife, we went to like a tractor pull or something. It was great. I love that stuff. And they were riding around with horses and American flags. And my wife, she's like, "Why do they have flags? Do you not know what country you're in?" I guess in Europe or in Poland, they don't wave flags like we do over here. But that's my story.
Wait, I think one more comment from Dan. I don't know about this. Hey, good for you guys. I'm in wet Orlando still, but we're back this weekend.
All right.
Well, enjoy the sun for us, Dan, and go freaking swimming for me too, please, would you? All right. So who else was I following here? What I really wanted to talk about was the race for the Supreme Court justice spots. So basically, the Supreme Court justices, you can vote for 3 of them, and there are multiple candidates this year. And it was a really interesting race because there was a lot of cross endorsing between parties that you wouldn't necessarily suspect. For example, there were Democrats from Schenectady who were cross endorsed by the conservatives. It was a whole mishmash, and I actually wish I had the ballot in front of me. But one of the people who was running was Chris Obstarzik, who is the former chair of the Republican City Committee, and he is currently holding on to 3rd place with 36 votes. But there's still several absentee ballot votes to be counted, and I suspect, if I was a betting woman, I suspect he is going to be bumped into 4th place, and Bob Mueller, Judge Mueller, will hold on to that 3rd place seat. That's my prediction. What do you think?
That's an incredibly close race. I mean, I think over 100,000 ballots have been, cast, and come down to like 38 votes. Chris he's a neighbor of mine. Our kids play together. I think he's a good guy. I think he'd be, good on the bench. But boy, this has got to be tough. I know, after the election, that election night, you don't want the suspense to be dragged out 3 or 4 more days.
I know it, right?
But it's something our viewers should know about the Supreme Court in New York. You hear Supreme Court, and I think most people kind of connect that with the highest court in the land.
Right.
The New York Supreme Court is not the highest court in New York State. There is a court that's higher than the Supreme Court. I'm blanking on the name. Dan, if you're watching, maybe you can fill that in now. But so when you talk about the New York State Supreme Court, you're not talking about the highest court in New York State, as opposed to the federal Supreme Court that is the highest court in the land. So
I'm looking right now for here we go. Okay. So yeah, the total votes cast, holy cow, 284,240. That is wild. And you have 1, 2, 3. You had 3 Democrats running, 3 Republicans running. Wait, 3 people were endorsed by the Dems, 3 people were endorsed by the Republicans, and 3 people were endorsed by the conservatives. But there was a lot of cross endorsements in there. So I think Allison McGahee has definitely won. And I'm not sure who's in second. I think maybe Richard Kupferman is in third, and then fighting it out or second, and fighting it out for the 3rd spot are Obstarzik and Mueller. I will say personally, he does live on your block, Chris Obstarzik, and I have to say, I thought it was a little tacky on Halloween. We have the same route that we trick or treat every Halloween, and including your block, Adam. And on Halloween, my kids ran up to me and they're like, "Mom, what's this?" Tommy, my 6-year-old, ran up to me, "Mom, what's this?" He was giving away little pieces of candy taped to his campaign card. I mean, are some things not sacred? Can we not trick or treat without having campaigning involved? I mean, come on, right?
I don't know. Anyway.
You don't want to talk about it. I'll say, I thought it was
I thought my neighbor who put up my opponent's campaign sign just turning the front porch lights off. I thought that was terrible.
I know, but sticking little pieces of candy, can you see that? Sticking little pieces of candy to your campaign card. I mean, are 12-year-olds and under your target audience? Come on now. Some things are stupid.
All right.
Leave the candy. I'm hoping that Bob Mueller pulls through on this one because I think that Upstarzik is very easily manipulated by the Republican Party, and I don't think that's a great sign to have in a judge. And Mueller's got the experience, so I hope he pulls through, but we'll keep people posted on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think so. I hope Chris wins. So we'll see what happens.
Robin and here we go. Dan, God, this is why we need him. Low to high, Supreme Court. Yes, thank you, Dan. His wife and kids are probably like screaming. He's probably in a pool right now, commenting and listening.
I know.
That's really good to know. That is very good to know. So aside from that, I just wanted to go over two other, because it's so interesting, the area we're in and how it leans Dem, because the 112th Assembly District, so we're in the 113th, and the 112th, Mary Beth Walsh, who's been a longtime incumbent, she's a Republican. She won with 59% of the vote against McAdoo, who had 47% of the vote. I don't see a Democrat winning there for a long time, really. And then, of course, Elise Stefanik won her race against Matt Castelli, although Matt Castelli, I would say, has had the best showing. I didn't compare it to Tedrick Cobb, but I'm quite certain he did better than Tedrick Cobb. Did you look at those results?
No, I didn't because she does. I mean, she does affect Saratoga County, but not me. But I didn't look much into that race. I mean, because I know what I think about her, and I don't know what I think about Castelli, but I thought he had some great ads. I thought, he was in he was a federal officer, I think, in the CIA.
Yeah, he was.
Well put together guy. I think he had some good things to say. But
he did. I think he probably surprised them with how well he did, even though there's still a fairly significant separation. He got 40% of the vote, which was 111,000 votes, to her 59%, which was 161% of the votes. So a better showing.
You got 61%?
No. He got. Wait, I just wrote it down. Hold on. He got 40% to her 59%.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid win.
But I mean, in comparison to previous elections is what I want to look up, because I think that they were pretty surprised, I think, by how well he did. Let's see here. Oh, no, it was pretty similar. So Stefanik beat Tedrick Cobb 59% to 41%.
So it was about the same.
Yeah. Well, I hope Matt Castelli goes on to run for other office, because I think he has an incredible background, an impeccable background, and I think he would make a great representative wherever he runs. So I hope.
Again, I didn't follow the race closely. Maybe he knows, maybe not. But he's not from the North Country, correct?
He is from the North Country.
He is. Because I'm just wondering that's got to be a tall order to go up against. And at least one of the most powerful women in Washington.
Wait, as Dan DeFederici would say, it's a tough district for a Dem.
Yes.
True story, because you've got all the North Country and they bleed red. I mean, that is red.
They
red,
do.
red.
And Elise Stefanik, again, just kind of touting the Trump line, has rose to power, pretty quickly in Washington. Going into that race, I mean, I don't know. Does a Democrat think they could win, or is it Democrat posturing, or?
I mean, 111 people voting against her isn't insignificant, Yeah. And so I think it depends what happens with Trump. And I think it depends. Yeah, I think it really depends on what happens with Trump, because her star, shines or fades with Trump.
Let's we don't normally do this, but let's stop into national politics. Put our toes. We'll put our toes in the water here.
Okay.
What is your takeaway of what happened? There wasn't that red wave that everybody thought.
First of all, every time they say red wave, I think of like communists coming to America, and then I think of that stupid movie Red Dawn. You know that movie where like communists.
Yeah. Do Red Dawn actually because of the Ukraine invasion? There's actually like a unit named after them, the Kraken. And
no way.
Yeah. It's all like when I was in Ukraine, like it's like this special forces unit in Ukraine that kind of it's really crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, sales of that movie went up, and yes.
For those that don't know about the plot of Red Dawn, my husband made me watch it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's basically Russians invade like Colorado, this like town in Colorado, and so this group of like teenagers like forms a resistance and like fights back and win. They're triumphant.
Yeah, exactly. And it was in the beginning of the Ukraine invasion. It was a lot of similarities. So
it's just the funniest freaking movie because it's like, oh, the Russians wouldn't invade a coast; they go right to Colorado. Anyway,
and take on 80s, like Kevin
So,
Bacon.
There was no red wave. There wasn't even a red trickle that I can see. I'm actually happy that Georgia's having a runoff. I think Herschel Walker is unfit for office. And I don't know if you recall, but 2 years ago, that's when Georgia really came through and won the other runoff 2 years ago. And so I think that Democrats have a really strong ground game, especially in Georgia. And that's something that Republicans have always not done as well as the Democrats. They don't have as many feet on the ground. They aren't able to mobilize feet on the ground that well. And so I'm hoping that Warnock will prevail in that runoff. I think that's really important. I would really like to see Catherine Cortez Masto win. That's still up in the air.
She's got a tough hill. I mean, there's a path to it, but she's got to get like 60% or 65% of the absentee votes. But it's been skewing that way, so there is a path.
And then our friend Carrie Lake, how's she doing?
Boy,
I say that sarcastically, by the way.
Yeah. I looked yesterday. She's losing, but not by enough to make me feel comfortable. But what I really took away from this is that I think this was neither party really got a mandate in this because the Democrats are going to lose the House. The Senate's probably going to looks like remain the same. 50-50 split. So I see a lot of Trump-backed candidates losing. And I've said this. I hope that this can be the party can move on to something other than Trump. Maybe it's the future. Maybe it's Ron the future DeSantis. He had a big win in there.
Well, let's just not play around here. Ron DeSantis is Trump. He's just smarter and more palatable for people. So I hate it when people are like, I hate Trump, but I love Ron DeSantis. They are literally one and the same. So let's not pretend they're not. But anyway,
I don't know that Ron DeSantis though would try to. I truly believe the Donald Trump.
You don't know that he would start an insurrection.
I don't think he's right.
Wow! Now is that now a selling point for a candidate? He wouldn't start an insurrection. Woohoo! I mean, where are we? But he would happily start a civil war, in my opinion. The way he talks about different states and the way he talks about Florida versus the world, I mean, I think he would happily start a civil war.
Well, I guess it's the next you're seeing right now. I think it was the New York Post which is usually very pro-Trump, had a very anti-Trump cover on it. It said like Trump can't build a wall. Trump had a great fall in reference to the national elections. It's going to be interesting to see the Republican Party. Every time you think Trump gets a death blow, he survives it. So
I do think that Rupert Murdoch, who owns the New York Post and Fox News and News Corporation, I think Rupert Murdoch has gotten Trump fatigue. And so that's why, of late in the last couple of months, Trump has railed against Fox News and he hasn't lost that media partner. And I think Rupert Murdoch still pulls a lot of the strings and is pretty influential in the most like evil possible way in our elections, but they're not so gung-ho for Trump.
Yeah, but we've seen that before. I remember after the insurrection,
they cooled off a little.
The Fox cooled off, and that's when Trump, started his own media out. Like Newsmax was, came about.
OAN.
Yeah, exactly.
All this fucking bonker stuff.
Right, and that's when Lindsey Graham was saying enough is enough. And it looked like all right, everybody was over Trump, and then
was that before or after Lindsey Graham suggested there be a national abortion ban?
The national, that's another thing the Republicans are going to have to revisit because that certainly is not a winner.
Yeah, and we know the Fox News hosts were anti-insurrection because they were all texting Trump to stop. We know all that now, right?
Yes.
Of course, they would deny that on air these days, but I would expect a presidential announcement fairly soon. That's my guess because I think that he wants to dissuade other people from primarying him. I think that a lot of the Republicans know what it's like to be on the wrong end of Donald Trump, and it sucks. So I could see a death match between he and DeSantis for the Republican nomination. I don't know if you knew this, but Trump went down last week to Florida to shill for Marco Rubio, but did not include DeSantis in that. And so that was kind of, people really saw that as another glaring example of how much Trump doesn't like DeSantis and vice versa. Charlie Crist, by the way, ran against DeSantis. I don't know if you watched the debate, but Charlie Crist actually like dominated on so many points. I know him from my days at Fox. I think he's a good guy. He's definitely a little war torn, and he's been in politics for a long time, but it's a shame to see him go. Yeah, it's a shame to see him go. So nationally, Lauren Boebert. How's Lauren Boebert doing, Adam?
She's back in the lead.
Fuck! Sorry, excuse my language, people. Shit.
Yeah. So that's a very close race. If people don't know Lauren Boebert is, she is
part of the Freedom Caucus.
Part of the Freedom MAGA, you know.
She's Marjorie's BFF.
Yes. And she's was poised to do, she was thought to do very well. It's a very tight race right now. She's just a little too far right for my liking. So
thank God, Adam Israel, because basically everyone in the Freedom Caucus are total freaking Looney Tunes. That entire Freedom Caucus. Just go look at the people on it, Adam. I think you would agree they're total Looney Tunes. Oh wait, we forgot my number one favorite candidate that I've been backing since literally May. John Fetterman. Thank you, Jesus. Knocked off Dr. Oz. I was getting so nervous about that race. And I actually think had it been like a week later, Dr. Oz probably would have won. But thank God, Fetty, you won. You pulled through. Praise God.
I don't think Fetterman, or I don't think Oz was that bad. It was that extreme. I have mixed feelings.
Did you look at any of his stuff?
What's that?
Did you look at any of his stuff? He thinks that abortions should be between a woman, a doctor, and their
local representative. Yeah, no, that was a miss. I know that. I guess my point is it does kind of speak to the mandate against Trump that a Trump-backed candidate lost. So
also run where you're from.
Yeah.
Run where you're from. Yeah. I mean, that's just like, I hate that shit. You know what I mean? Looking around to see where there might be a candidate you can knock off and pretending that you're from Pennsylvania.
Well, didn't Hillary Clinton run as in New York? She wasn't from New York.
That's a really good point. I don't think I voted for her when she ran in New York. Seriously, I wasn't a Hillary fan even when I voted for her in the presidential election. I've never been a Hillary fan. I've never been a huge Clinton fan. Although I find him charming and now very like reassuring sounding, although not as much as Barack Obama. My God, I listened to Barack Obama and I'm like, he is a talented man. And I kind of wish he was leading our country right now, but what are you going to do? Anyway, how long have we been on for, Adam?
42 minutes.
Dan has a jeer he wants to share. Should we put it up?
Yeah. All right. Cheers and jeers.
All right. Dan cheers the weather. Yes, Robin. Yes, Robin, the weather in Florida. First hurricane to make. Oh, geez. Disney, no fun in the rain. Oh, boy. Oh, Dan. That's a bummer, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
So previously, Dan had cheered the weather, and I made fun of him because I thought weather was like a lame jeer. But in this instance, I totally validate that, Dan, and I'm sorry for you. That stinks. Do you want to move on to our cheers and jeers?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, hold on. Let me take down our little banner here. Let me do my little producing over here. Oh, cheers and jeers. Where are you? Cheers. There they are. Cheers and jeers. What do you got, Adam Israel?
All right, I got two cheers today. One is for the Ukraine army. They're taking back Kherson as we're speaking. Kherson was one of the only capital that and they have these oblasts there. I don't really fully understand how the geography of Ukraine, but Kherson was the biggest city that Russia took, the only capital. And Ukraine was able essentially this summer to cut off all supplies into the city. And, as it looks right now, Russia is pulling out its troops. So it's the bad part is these troops will go somewhere, probably go to the Donbass to continue the assault on other cities out east. But the good news is, the army's taking this with relatively few shots fired. They're going to go into the city. The city's not going to be leveled. This hasn't happened yet, but this is what appears to happen. And so congratulations to the Ukraine army for keep on pushing Russia out of their territory.
Yeah, Adam, how does this end? How does this all end, do you think?
Boy, that's a great question, because there's a lot of talk now of secretly United States kind of pushing Ukraine to open up to peace negotiations, and Ukraine essentially will not trade land for peace.
Yeah.
They've been explicit about this. They will keep fighting. And their fear is that if they give land now, then what's going to stop Putin from doing this
Totally
again?
agree.
And so they keep on fighting, but they keep winning too, and that's something that's really kind of interesting. Is that they're getting back their land, they're getting back this land that Russia took, and it's just it's unfortunate, it's bloody, a lot of lives, a lot of destruction, all for one madman. But it's a David versus Goliath story, and the Ukraine army is really the greatest quote I heard. Maybe I said this is that if Russia stops fighting, the war is over. If Ukraine stops fighting, then Ukraine's over. And I think that's really powerful in meeting, and I think that's how they're fighting. So I don't know how it ends, but inch by inch they're taking their territory back.
I personally totally agree with their position on not giving up land. And people who say that, oh, we just need to provide Putin a nice exit ramp. Bullshit. He doesn't want to take a nice exit ramp. And I don't think they should compromise at all with the land. It's like negotiating with a terrorist. If you negotiate with a terrorist once, he's going to be back and negotiating again. So I personally am really in favor of their position. And I don't think they should give away any land. And I don't think this exit ramp, I think that's all bullshit. So I'm with the Ukrainians once again.
Yeah.
Did you have another
cheer today? I'll go ahead.
Oh, okay. I wasn't fully ready, but my first cheer is to Matthew Taylor. Matthew Taylor is living in Rochester right now. He is near and dear to my heart. He's been involved in Saratoga Springs politics for a long time. He helped me on my campaign tremendously, and he is working on a state senator in Rochester's campaign who is up for re-election, and she won. And so I just wanted to congratulate Matthew Taylor on his win.
Way to go, Matt.
Way to go, Matthew. You rock. And it was so funny because it was, I think this weekend, I got a picture from my friend Kristen Dart, who's from Saratoga, who had gone up to Rochester to help with GOTV, which is Get Out the Vote. And she ran right into Matthew Taylor. And so she sent me a picture. She's like, guess who I ran into in Rochester? And I love those moments when kind of worlds collide, Saratoga politics and Rochester politics and friends collide. So that was pretty awesome. And my other cheer, because I'm not going to do a cheer, is to Deirdre Ladd. Because Deirdre Ladd is a dear friend, but also has been involved in politics here for a long time. Her family's been involved in politics. And she was Jason Golub's campaign manager. And she did such a tremendous job dealing with so many different factions. Like when you're a campaign manager, you're dealing with the committee, you're dealing with other electeds, you're dealing with the public, you're dealing with the candidate. You have all these people chirping in your ear 24/7. And it's really, really stressful. And she handled it so well. So my cheer is to Deirdre. Deirdre, you rock. Adam, I know you would agree. Deirdre Ladd rocks.
Yeah. Deirdre's a neighbor of my mother's, just a great lady.
She's a wonderful human.
Yeah, she is a wonderful human. She's very, she believes in the cause, and and she works at it. And so, yeah, congratulations, Deirdre. I actually didn't know that she was Jason. I learned from politics that a lot of times who the campaign manager is might be a secret. I knew Deirdre was working on his campaign. I did not know she was a campaign manager. So congratulations. It's got to be a great feeling when you get your candidate across the finish line in front. So congratulations, Deirdre.
Absolutely. All right. I think that wraps things up. Hopefully we will be back Wednesday at noon at our normal time with Dan. We'll have a little reunion.
All right. It'll be a city council meeting, so we'll keep you posted.
Oh, yeah. Excited. All right. Thank you, everybody.